Attorney Brent Burks joins us to talk about negligence, and it all kind of surrounds sometimes those little waivers that we sign. But I think the first question is, what is negligence?
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, this is something that you spend an entire semester at least on in law school, but I'd like to try to help educate the public. There are a couple of definitions. One is, act as a reasonable person would act under all the circumstances, and tied up in that is, every one of us have a duty in a certain circumstance to act in that reasonable manner. And if we don't comply with that duty, then we're negligent. And there are maybe some examples of that.
Now, what are some examples of a duty that we have towards others? And what do you mean by a duty?
Well, the most common thing, and it's very easy for everybody to understand, is I'm driving my car. I have a duty to stop at a stop sign. I have a duty not to tailgate somebody. I have a duty not to go flying through a red light, not to drive exceedingly fast for the circumstances. Landowners have a duty to make sure if you invite people to a party that you don't have a loose railing where people are going to lean on it and fall. Professionals assume a duty to care for patients, for instance, doctors within a reasonable standard, attorneys within a reasonable standard. Those are examples of duties that we have in the law.
Now, when it comes to negligence, I mentioned this at the very beginning here, can negligence be waived in Tennessee? And we're kind of joking, once you sign your name on that piece of paper, but there are some examples. There's reasons why you sign that paper, whether you go whitewater rafting or zip line or something like that. But can that be waived?
Absolutely. And if you think of the dangerous activities you've mentioned, if you go whitewater rafting and you bounce out of that raft and hit your head, it's inherently dangerous activity. Zip lining, now rock climbing, there's a lot of those businesses popping up, the jump parks. Before your child or you are going to get to go and use those facilities, you're signing a waiver, and you're generally waiving most negligence claims. And it gets complicated. If you have an injury there, we'd ask you to call us and let us look at it. You can't waive gross negligence and some egregious things, but most general negligence can be waived.
Gross negligence, is that more or less, if you are at a jump park or something and you're just going too wild or doing something that's within the outside the boundaries of what they require as rules?
It's a complicated legal definition, but it's a higher standard. Negligence is basically failure to act as you should act without thinking about it. But gross negligence would be essentially there's a problem and you continue to take this action when you should do something about it. It may cause harm to the public.
So if someone breaches a duty against me, do I have a claim or a lawsuit?
Yeah, that gets into a definition. A claim is simply that, a claim for damages against an insurance company. A lawsuit's a step further when things have broken down and you actually file a lawsuit, because I get that question a lot.
And what should the public do if they have a claim or a lawsuit?
Well, I'd encourage them to contact experienced lawyers, because they can tell you right off the bat. One of the big things we've not talked about is, you blow through that red light, and if, example, I swerve and they miss me, I don't have any damages. So the next part is, are they negligent, and did that negligence cause damages? But ask them to call, I would have them call experienced lawyer, McMahan Law Firm, 265-1100. We can take a look at it for them and give them a real quick answer whether there's a case there.
So I got a real quick question for you. Signing those waivers here, as a lawyer, we sign almost a waiver for everything now, and there's a lot to read there. Is there any sort of advice there? Because sometimes we just don't have the hour to read that before we go whitewater rafting. My
advice would be read it and ask questions. We get that all the time. I just didn't read it, or I didn't understand it. The law presumes that you understand it, and if you don't, then you need to ask the owner, the proprietor of whatever store this is or whatever business this is, what this waiver really says and what all it waives.
Do you have any problem with maybe minors signing that when they shouldn't be?
Minors can't sign it.
Right.
So that's a big problem. Yeah, the parent has to sign for a minor.
And of course, that would be the business's responsibility. Let's say if we do send a minor into an organization and they sign something, it's up to the business to make sure that they
absolutely
know that a parent is present or can sign that for them.
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to put the information up on the screen, folks. It is McMahan Law Firm. They have all the answers for any questions that you may have. They're located there at 323 High Street in Chattanooga. The phone number is 423-265-1100, and through their website, McMahanLawFirm.com.